Good morning. Today we're going to continue on with our methods for solving quadratic equations, and we are going to focus on solving by square roots, which again you did in Algebra 1. The biggest difference now is that we'll have imaginary numbers and we'll have to we'll have to simplify radicals. So pretty simple. Inverse operations, if I have an x squared, to get rid of the square, I have to take the square root of both sides. So the opposite of squaring is square root. Okay, the square root of 4 is 2. However, there are actually two numbers on the number line that would give us 4 if we squared them. -2 and +2. So if I do -2 squared or +2 squared, I get 4 for both of those. When I solve by square roots, it's really important that I don't forget that plus or minus sign. If you do not have it, you are technically missing a solution, so you will lose part of your credit there. But pretty simple. Take the square root of both sides and go from there. Okay, so the next one. Take the square root of both sides. I cannot take the square root of 54, so I actually need to find my biggest perfect square that goes into that. So think back to your list that you have. We have 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, so forth and so on. Biggest number on my list that goes into 54 is 9, so 9 times 6. So the square root of 9 times 6, or the square root of 9, is 3. The 6 is going to stay inside the square root. Again, don't forget your plus or minus sign. Anytime you take square roots of both sides, you're going to need to have that there, so don't forget that for square roots. Okay, how does that relate to the graph? Well, plus or minus 2, my intercepts on my graph are at -2 and +2. And then if I typed in the square root of 54 in my calculator, I do get a decimal, so that's where those show up there. Okay, let's do a couple more. Square root on both sides to get rid of that square. Now, the square root of 49 is 7, but because it's negative, remember that we have to have an I there, and again, don't forget your plus or minus sign. Okay. B, square root of both sides. Now, I cannot take the square root of -48, so I'm going to find my biggest perfect square that goes into 48, and it's actually -16. So the square root of -16 is 4i, and then the 3 is going to stay inside the radical. Okay, so all I'm doing is taking the square root of both sides and then going back to what we did on Monday the 15th and simplifying those radicals. Okay, again, this one doesn't cross the x-axis. That's why we have an imaginary number. So if it never crosses, we won't have an x-intercept. Okay, let's do some more. Before we can take the square root of both sides, we need to get the part that's squared by itself. So I have to get this by itself, which means I have to cancel that plus 6. So if I subtract 6 from both sides, I get -4. Then take the square root of both sides, and the square root of -4 is plus or minus 2i. Okay. Next one, I have to get the p squared alone. So to get rid of the 7, be really careful here. You divide, you do not subtract. So I get p squared equals 16. And then take the square root of both sides. So the square root of 16 is 4. So plus or minus 4. Okay, the next two have a couple steps there. So getting this alone, I need to cancel both 4s. So I'm going to start with my addition. So add 4 to both sides. And then divide. And then take the square root. So the square root of -16 is positive or -4i. Okay, last one, getting this alone. We're going to start by subtracting 6 from both sides to get 224. Divide everything by 8. To get 28. And then take the square root of both sides. The biggest perfect square that goes into 28 is 4. So 4 times 7. Square root of 4 is 2. And then we have a 7 there. And no imaginary number because it wasn't a negative. Okay, let's keep going. This one's going to be kind of special. get that v squared alone, so I'm going to add 7 to both sides. Notice that this time I can't divide that 64. Okay, it doesn't go in nicely. So I'm going to leave it as a fraction. And I'm going to take the square root of both sides. To take the square root of a fraction, you just do the top and bottom separately. So the square root of 49 is 7, the square root of 64 is 8, and you plus or minus 7/8 for your answer. For b, add 2 to both sides. You get 6x squared equals negative 42. Divide everything by 6, you get negative 7. And then this one's a little different because I can't actually break that down at all. So all I need to do is bring my I out front for that negative, and then the 7 is going to stay on the inside since I don't have any factors that are perfect squares. Okay, you're going to try the next ones on your own, and then have them go through them in class or have them checked with a partner, and then when you finish, you are going to go ahead and do your homework. Next, you are going to solve quadratics by completing the square. Have a great day.